Are we good? I think we're good. I think we're live. Heck yeah. Nice. Give it a couple minutes, see if anyone decides to hop in. I've got a plan today, and it's exciting. Well, I think it's exciting. No one else will, but I think it's exciting. But I gotta see if my plan is online yet. They might still be at work. Or on their way home. Yeah, I think they're not available yet, so they might have to come in later. All right, YouTube, Twitch, how's it going? Making some progress or continuing to make progress with the game engine, the C++ 23 game engine, if you will. Let's see. I did hop on yesterday for a little bit, and we managed to knock out a couple of features. Mostly getting some like recursion capability implemented to gather nested children and be able to recursively collect those nested children, but doing so without an actual recursive loop. All of which was done to try and appease our clang tidy gods, but that didn't go as well as I had hoped. So now, after doing all that work to eliminate the recursion, I decided to put recursion back in, and we ended up with a kind of a hybrid where you would recursively collect children if you needed it, but for node-based code, where we want to have nested transformations and have those apply to sub nodes, that is where we are still kind of leaning on some recursion. So that's where things were kind of left off. Now I'm hoping later this evening I'm gonna have someone who used to work for me come in and try and find a way for them to contribute. It sounds like they are interested in contributing with the Game Engine project, which would help me out a lot. So I'm hoping to sit with them on stream and kind of go over some ideas I had for them. So I'll probably wait to bring those ideas up until he's on. And then the other piece of this puzzle was getting event handling up and running. So, or at least at a minimum, getting some Raylib event translation happening so that the engine can propagate the events accordingly and get them to whoever cares to look at them, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And so I think I am ready to start coding. Let's do this. Actually, where do I even start? Event handling with Raylib. Now, I have messed with Raylib a little bit in the past, and I am aware that Raylib's event handling is kind of designed to make life easier on a newer developer. But that ease of use has made it a little more difficult to break out the pieces of events that I need for my application. So I am going to have to come up with a solution to translate Raylib events to basically just like C++ events. Though I'll probably make use of standard variant to do all of the, I would say, the non-extensible events. So touch, mouse, joystick, what else? Keyboard, those type of events. We'll implement that using standard variant. I think if I want to support a user being able to extend events, then we are probably going to need some type of pointer that you can inherit from, kind of thing. I don't think there's any way around that. But for the core events, we should be able to use a variant, which will be really quick. So the question becomes, what the heck are we going to do about all this? I think step one, are we going to need a bit mask for events to handle like different modifiers? So for example, control shift alt while pressing a key or pressing a mouse button, a bit mask for multiple mouse buttons pressed in a single event. I don't know if I need that yet, so I probably won't stress about it. So I think the starting point then is just a simple set of structs with enums and data types that we store in a variant and call it a day. So I think that's a good start. So we'll go with that. You have a question to ask. I mean, I won't be able to stop you. What am I developing? In the stream, I am developing a game engine to make a game. This will not be a full-blown game engine. This will be only the parts and pieces I know I need to make the game I'm going to make. If it goes beyond that, I don't know. It all depends on the interest and if people actually want me to continue building it out. But my long-term goal is to make a game in modern C++ using C++ modules and release it on Steam, Steam Deck, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe pull in some developers who have worked for me in the past who have interest in contributing to the project. You may or may not see them on stream this evening. We'll see. And then professionally, I do modeling, simulation, and like application type of stuff. Not C++ 26 yet. I am building with GCC 16. So if we look at my dev container here, I do have GCC 16 installed. But currently GCC 16 is the only compiler that I'm aware of that supports reflections. So I'm not looking to swap to 26 until at least all three compilers have some support for reflections, because that's like the big thing I want to play around with. So we'll see. Only time will tell. What kind of game will it be? I'm glad you asked. I have a website that has a couple of screenshots. So I prototyped this game idea in Godot, because Godot is pretty quick and easy to get stuff scripted up. It's going to be called Briarthorn. That name may change at some point, but it's currently called Briarthorn. And I want it to be this tactical situation, kind of top-down aircraft display. So you think of like what like a fighter jet's cockpit would look like, and how it has a radar screen on it, and maybe you have like a weapon loadout, that kind of thing. And I want to make it to where you're either going to real-time fly, or I might make it turn-based strategy, or a combination. I'm not sure. But I'm currently picturing a handful of classes you can play, almost like a highly maneuverable mid to short range fighter jet, a not quite as maneuverable but bulky mid to long range bomber type of aircraft, or maybe like a battle station type of platform. The one I'm really interested in seeing if I can make fun to play, I'm currently calling the Swarm, which will be like a cluster of drones that you play around with, and they like move like a single aircraft, but maybe has abilities to like shift and morph depending. And then you don't like die immediately if you blow up. You die when all of your drones have been destroyed, kind of thing. And then the other class I'm currently picturing is going to be like a stealth fighter type of class. So something that's really hard to detect and hard to hit down, but maybe doesn't deal as much damage, but can get up and close and personal. So I'm no idea if this will be fun, but my overall thought is combining fantasy style RPG elements, except instead of spells, you fire missiles, right? Or you have some kind of defensive abilities, something like that. Potentially just going to be like a roguelite. You play different missions, that kind of thing. We'll see. Time will tell. This is very, very early concept right now. There's no real gameplay loop other than with the screenshot you see I'm shooting a missile type of thing. Where that goes long term, time will tell. But that's kind of what I'm building. And so now I'm trying to build up this a small, very small game engine to make this possible in C++ rather than spend all my time and effort learning Godot. Is this the way to go to make a game? Probably not, but I am somewhat capable, so I'm going to try, and we'll see if I succeed. Oh, what is the estimate for it to be ready? If I had to guess, I would love to try and get something out the door by February next year, because I think that's when Steam Fest is. If I could push for this to be done for Steam Fest, that would be huge. Now, I need to be realistic. I work 40 hours a week, and I don't know if that's enough time, like in the evenings when I am actually developing, to get the game out the door, right? If I was solely interested in just getting the game out the door, I think I should just stick to Godot and just get it done, right? But in the interest of showing off C++ and, you know, working with my viewers to learn C++ or to see how I go about doing C++ development, after talking to some of my viewers, it seems it's worthwhile to do it in C++. So a couple of benefits there. One, my viewers get to see some real life C++ being developed. Two, I get to own the code versus like it belonging to Godot, right? And by that I mean I'll be more comfortable and familiar with the code. So if I can get it into a state where it's usable to make a game, then long term I'll be much more comfortable and quicker to develop a game using it, at the cost of spending too much time probably building it up, you know? And there is a risk. There's always a risk when you go the route of making a game engine instead of the game, is you eventually get to a point where there's not much left to add to the game engine. You actually got to start making a game. I have never made a game before. I'm going to say that up front. I don't know a lick about game design. I don't know a lick about what it takes to make a game fun. So I'm going to try. What I do know is just how to build, you know, framework simulations, things like that. So it's easier for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a game, and then build up the game engine. And then it's like, oh, I actually have to make the game now. And it's like, the game does this and it's so fun, right? And it turns out it's not fun at all, right? There's always that risk. But that's kind of where things are at. And so far, viewers have seemed pretty cool with me just doing some C++. All right, I just went on a rant and I didn't see any of these questions, so give me one sec. You want to learn GD script, but there are no good free sources. I don't have good recommendations for Godot script myself. I learned what I did more from the fact that I generally know how to organize projects, and I generally know how I want to organize my data and gameplay logic. And so I just took that knowledge and then basically Googled syntax, right? Or watched a YouTube video on syntax, and then leaned on the Godot editor to yell at me every time I got syntax incorrect. So beyond that, your knowledge is probably as good as mine. Can you answer the question, please? How do you solve reflection? What types are you adding support? Yeah, so I don't 100% know reflection yet with C++ 26. That's why I'm waiting for all compilers to support. So with my game engine here that I'm building, I already have it supporting Windows, Linux, Mac, WebAssembly, and technically it could support Android as well, but the amount of time and effort it's taking me to like maintain the code base and keep it running on Android is too much for one person, so I took it out. But with a little bit of effort, we could get this up and running on Android again if I needed to. I use dev containers, so I'm developing on Windows. Visual Studio MSVC compilers, but with dev containers and Windows subsystem for Linux, I have this Docker file here that sets up my environment for GCC, Clang, and mscripton being the compiler tool chains for WebAssembly. So I support all of those, and I can at any point swap into my container here to build my project, run it, and I actually have Linux graphics running on Windows. Can I show you guys this? First try? First try. There you go. So as you can see, the game engine isn't much of anything yet, right? I literally, let's see, I think I titled this day 3. So we're literally on day 3. But I do have Linux graphics running on Windows, so that's cool. And then when I'm done with that, I can hop back into Windows. Why do you need your own engine? I don't need my own engine for this. Like I said, this is more for streaming entertainment than actually solving a problem. Everyone and their brother is making a game engine, right? I bet if you searched up C++ game engine right now on YouTube, there's probably multiple YouTubers live streaming making a game engine, right? So this, for me, is more about sharing C++ knowledge and how I go about writing code for those who want to come by and watch. And also to bring in some developers who want to contribute. Developers I've worked with, of course, who want to contribute. I can bring them on stream and and you guys can you'll see like how I interact and how like I go about project planning, which I'm hoping to do today. But I got to wait and see if this, if Jamal, his name's Jamal, I got to wait and see if he's actually available or if he's done with work yet. But that's why C++. I would say if you're actively looking to make a game, don't make a game engine. That is not the way to go. It's the amount of time it would take you to make a game engine that works and works on all the platforms you need it to work on. You could spend that effort learning like Godot or Unity or something like that, right? But if it's something you're interested in, you just want to do it because you want to do it, like this guy, then yeah, make a game engine. I won't tell anyone. Hey, game dev working in Unreal. I use blueprints, so most of the under the hood stuff is pretty invisible. I tried to learn Unreal a few years ago, and it terrifies me. There is so much that Unreal offers, and it's like, oh my god, I'm just trying to make a game. Like, learning Unreal to me seems like a full-time job. So I am always impressed when hobby developers end up like pulling off some of the coolest things I've ever seen using Unreal. It's so awesome. I am using Raylib currently for rendering. That is subject to change, but like I said, my goal isn't to make a fully general purpose game engine. It's to make my game easier to develop. That's the goal. Now, this project is open source, available on GitHub if anyone's ever curious to see how I'm doing C++. It probably won't be the best code you've ever seen, but there's some little tidbits of knowledge I'm kind of proud of and willing to share. So if you're ever curious, hop in, take a look, see if you can learn anything. I will have my actual game in a different private repo because that's the one I actually want to make, money off of. But any general components I'm able to make that I need for the game, I will also put into this open source project. So we'll see. All right. No response from Jamal, so I think it's time to move on to actual coding, which is events. And the way we're going to do that is probably make it a part of the core project because the events don't need to depend on Raylib. This will be a good start. I know we're going to need a variant. We are not going to have, well, no, I don't think we're going to do it like this yet. We are going to do this. Do I need monostate? I don't know if I need monostate for what I'm trying to do. Because we're going to need a event keyboard, if I can spell. We're going to need event mouse. Event, event window would make sense. We're going to need event joystick. What else? I mean, I could technically do event, like, touch. I don't know if we're going to need touch. I just don't know if that's what we need. Segfault, you're not the only one. I've been doing C++ for over 15 years, and I bet I probably only know like 10% of it, right? Because especially professionally, usually what ends up happening is you'll get a job, and that job is for a company, right? And your company is tasked with solving some kind of problem, right? That problem could be anything, like Facebook. The problem they're trying to solve is social media. They are a social media company, right? But every problem requires different solutions, and C++ is so large that like you don't need all of it to solve your domain problem. You only need like some small subset. So modules, for instance, right? You've never heard of modules. I don't use modules professionally. I haven't had a need for it. And also it is new. It's like, gosh, technically it's part of the C++ 20 standard, but realistically it hasn't been until like GCC 15 that you could do modules well across all three compilers. So I'm using Visual Studio 22 or 26, both support it. GCC 15 and 16 support it. And at least Clang 22 supports it, right? And Clang 22 specifically because I also make use of a tool called Clang Tidy for static analysis. And version 22, I think, has so far, because it's the latest, has the best support for scanning modules. So that's kind of why. So part of this whole reason of why am I building a game engine when I could just use Godot or anything else is learning, right? I want to improve my C++ knowledge, so I'm challenging myself to learn it by doing something ridiculous like making a game engine. I'd probably be better off doing something a little smaller, but I might be a little crazy and a little unwell. We'll see. So, keyboard event, mouse event, window events. Window events probably occur. I want them up here. And then each of these events are going to have an event type. So we'll do enum class, of course, if you've seen my YouTube short. Let's see. Key. No, type. I also need C standard int. I'm on the same boat, been working on 2D for the past 2 years now. That's awesome. 2 years on a project, like, especially if it's just for fun, I'm always impressed by those who can stick with a project. Because I'll tell you, I've done all kinds of little side projects over the years. Some of them might still exist on GitHub. A lot of them have been deleted over the course of time because I'll play around, I'll try something, but then eventually I give up because it starts to feel like work. All right, so a keyboard can be pressed, released. I guess it technically could be repeated. I don't know if Raylib supports repeated. So I'm going to just keep it on press and release for now. Let's do... I do have a cat, which is why I brought this chair in, and he used it before, but now he's just sitting on the floor. What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Now he's stretched out, pulling himself towards me. What are you doing? You want to say hi? Huh? You want to say hi? What? He does not want to say hi. Okay, be that way. I will try. Hang on. Come here. Come on. Come here. You want to say hi? Want to say hi? This is Trill. What are you doing, buddy? You want to say hi? All right. Yeah, you want that. I got it. I got you. He might be hungry. I thought I fed him. I might have to get up. Oh, see, like I learned HTML4 when I was 14. My dad bought me one of those you guys remember those for dummy books? Those like those big yellow black in the center and it's something something for dummies. My dad bought me HTML4 for dummies and I would use that to build Dragon Ball Z text-based RPGs as websites. That's the extent of my HTML knowledge. I don't even know if CSS was a thing back then. Or if it was, I didn't know it as a kid. Oh, it's never too late to start coding. Are you kidding me? Anyone can code if they want to. A lot of people I've worked with didn't start coding until like after they graduated college. Let's see. Event keyboard. Button press, button release, move, wheel scroll. That looks right. I don't know what events. Well, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait on those. So we got event window, keyboard, mouse, joystick, touch. All right, does this compile? First try. Perfect. Okay. Keyboard is gonna have other state, isn't it? You got you got to know what key was pressed. Oh no. Oh my god. Let's see. A B C D F G, all of that fun stuff. Num 1 through 9. Escape, left control, alt menu. Seems reasonable. So I do know. How am I gonna do this? I probably need to use. Maybe this does depend on Raylib. Now that I think about it, because I think Raylib has. I think Raylib has like values defined for all of its events. How do I find them? Event. Automation event. Is there like keyboard? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, Raylib has a bunch of integers already defined, so I need to actually make use of this and assign my enums to these values. So yeah, events have to... Oh man, that's actually going to suck. I got to think about this. Maybe I don't. Yeah, C++ is super flexible. And, you know, I'm sure everyone hears the discussions on how terrible C++ is. I will say a lot of arguments against C++ you see online are not really issues I've ran into in 15 years of doing C++, because a lot of arguments online are like they're about older versions of C++, which, you know, I get it. People still use older versions. Um, but you can do better, and there are better ways to write it. Hopefully, I provide some examples of how to do things a little better. Type safety is pretty critical. I am always a proponent of type safety, memory safety, all that fun stuff. In the 15 years of doing C++ development, never really written... I've probably written at least one memory leak, but that's because I was like a junior dev who didn't know what they were doing. But like, it's pretty hard to get C++ wrong if you're using some tools. Not unlike a Rust borrow checker. Clang Tidy. If you can get Clang Tidy set up to scan your code after you build it, it's going to catch a significant amount of issues with your code, right? So I make use of that. I use auto a lot. I basically have been using auto my entire career because I learned C++ 98 in college, but then like immediately as an intern, I started using C++ 11, and they were all about using auto. So I know there are arguments against it, and I totally get it, but I personally have never had any issues understanding C++ code with auto, so I prefer it myself. Game instance, basically an object. Do you mean like a singleton? Hang on, my cat. I need to see if he's been fed. I'll be right back. Come on. Yep, I totally forgot to feed my cat, and he called me out for it. That was deserved. Um, Singletons, to the best of my ability, I try to avoid singletons at all, if at all possible. I think for small projects, toy projects, singletons are fine. Self-contained projects, singletons are probably okay. But with my background of doing like simulation, I spent a lot of time and effort integrating other people's like physics models into this engine. And you run into problems really quick when non-const global variables exist in a library that you're linking against, and you end up like you'll end up with like really esoteric crashes, right? You're running a simulation and then everything just boom blows up. Like, what in the heck's going on? You try and debug it, you try to figure things out, and it turns out some proprietary library that I don't have access to the code that I'm linking against, that I had to integrate with because a client needed it, was using a global variable like a singleton, and it had some expectation of state that my integration did not provide because I wasn't aware, and I wasn't aware there was this global variable just jumping around changing state on me. Because of things like that, I do my best to avoid globals. Now, I don't have any globals right now in this project like that. Will I? I don't know. Like I said, I'll try to avoid it if I have to, but if it makes sense to use it, then, I'll use it. With great power comes great responsibility. It's so much easier to avoid it. It saves you a lot of problems and headaches in the future. Yeah, I get the argument against using autos. I do. Especially if you don't have an IDE or a language server to like resolve the type for you, then it might be difficult to understand what type you're looking at. But having been using auto for 15 years, I have a generally good idea of what code looks like anyway. And so I can usually reason what the type is, so it doesn't bother me as much. But if you're like new or you don't have your head in C++ every day and you need to figure out what this code is doing quickly, I get it. But having used an IDE for most of my career as well, like it almost always lets you know what it is. So the trick I was going to employ with integrating Raylib events, I don't know if I'll be able to do. How do you pass dependencies around? I suppose it depends. Const reference could be a way to go. But that gets tricky if you start saving your passed around dependencies as references, because then it makes it to where your object can't be copied, which can cause all kinds of problems as well. So then you're like, well, okay, it's a pointer, but pointers could potentially be null. All right, well then I'm going to use a specialized type called not null, which is provided by the GSL library that Microsoft developed. Like, that's a potential solution. With my current solution that I'm using right now, I'm probably honestly just going to have like a couple setters and getters, right? And be like, hey, this like, well, I'll give you a concrete example. So this is kind of like how I expect my engine to work. You're going to instantiate this engine, and ignore all the red squigglies, by the way, because I'm using C++ modules. The LSPs in the world haven't really caught up to the language standard, and so you'll still get things like, hey, it's missing a semicolon, but the semicolon's right there, right? So it's not... It's an annoying way to do development, but it's something I've accepted because I'm using C++ modules. I hope someday it'll get better. But anyway, I have this concept of an engine, and then everything under the engine is basically going to be like, kind of like Godot. It's going to be this node hierarchy, right? Where you can just add children willy-nilly. You can add them directly. You can add them as sub-children. You can nest them, etc., right? Well, you might, as you're building up a node, want access to the engine. So how does that node get access to the engine? You could make the engine a singleton, or maybe have a singleton function, right? So maybe not a singleton where it's instantiated globally, but a function that accesses its pointer globally. I might still go that route. I'm not going to... Oh. I'm not going to go the route of allocating this engine as a singleton, because that's crazy talk, at least to me. But I wouldn't be opposed to having a function on it that could access the pointer globally. It's still not great, but it's better than nothing. That would give me access to all the dependencies I need, because basically you would have access to the entire engine from this engine, right? So that's one way I could do it. Another way I could do it is, you see how engine has this add child function. Well, inside this add child function, I could just have a setter on the object getting allocated. So if we actually go to this, not this one, this one, right? So here I'm allocating an object with make unique. So there's nothing stopping me from being like, hey, child set engine, and then just like propagate the dependency that way. So I could do that, right? I'm kind of waiting to see how I want to manage that type of dependency until I absolutely need it, because I know it's going to be a pain in the butt. All right. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that right now. The const reference is, it just depends what you're trying to solve, I guess. For me, the idea that I'm passing this engine around not as a const means anyone who is, implementing one of these nodes for the engine, anyone, I say anyone like anyone else is actually going to use this, me, the idea that myself will get access to the engine from like anywhere in the code base, and then like call any function on the engine, maybe out of order or when it should or shouldn't be called, that's kind of dangerous. So I want to try and come up with an API where if I am giving access to the engine, you're only going to be able to call certain functions that you're allowed to call. I don't want you to accidentally call a function you're not supposed to, right? That kind of thing. Make code that is easy to use, hard to use incorrectly. That's always my goal. Am I always successful? But it is a goal. Hey, Sarah, how's it going? So, I was going to use a reflection library for enumerations to potentially handle automatically translating Raylib events into my own events, but that means my event class would have to be a part of my Raylib library. I don't know if that's what I want to do. How did I come up with the name Awen? A little bit of Googling. So generally speaking, if I don't know if anyone's noticed a theme with my channels or anything, but I've tried to make it fantasy-ish, druidic, Celtic. I'm just trying to stick to somewhat of a theme with the type of stuff I'm doing. So I'll tell you the actual name I wanted to go with was Aspire, right? I like the idea of aspiring to achieve, right? Having something inspirational, something worth learning, something worth growing, your education, right? That kind of thing. But I looked and that name was taken. And so I look at GitHub and I try to see what popular names are, that kind of thing. And so if I was going to make something, I wanted a name that, 30 other libraries wasn't using. And so I was like, all right, well, what's some like Celtic origin, like words like that could potentially mean like inspirational or aspiring, you know, that kind of thing. Did I get the name wrong? Well, it's Awen now. I like the name. That's kind of where it was coming from. Did my cat? Oh, he's right there. Okay. For some reason, I thought I felt him up against my leg. Got ghost cat. Awin. I don't even know if I know how to pronounce that. Is that Awinidian? Awinidian? I don't even know how else I would pronounce that. Nithian. Awinithian. Okay. Arwen. I didn't even know how to pronounce the original word. Well, anyway. No super deep meaning. I just needed a name, and that name sounded cool at that point. And I didn't want to pick a name that like 30 other libraries were using. Or companies. Turns out companies have names too. Who actually needs my events? Is it mostly GUI that's going to need my events? Would I need to make objects that need to handle events? Well, that's awesome. You're definitely more involved than me. So I apologize if you hopped in thinking I knew as much as I was letting on about that. I just like the aesthetic. Nothing deeper than that. My what do you call this? My stream ID Funin is a character I played as a druid in a game called EverQuest back in the day. And so that's kind of where I was like trying to get things like aligned with Funin. All right. Events. You know what? Maybe sounds like I need to read up more on these names, make myself a little more knowledgeable. Events. All right, so if I do this, I can include Raylib. Okay, so then I should be able to do EA. All right, so I think that will work. Ooh, are there keys I'm not currently sporting? Key volume up, down, key. Oh, there's a lot of keys I'm not sporting. Function keys. I think we definitely want that. You know what? I'm just gonna copy. I'm gonna copy all these. Android back button. Wonder if I can do... I think I'm gonna do this. Crap. Crap. How do I handle player input? My engine looks like I'm just pressing a key, actually. We're going to figure that out. I am actively adding it to my engine right now. My initial thoughts on it is once I actually get the events handled, I want to... Oh, how do I... Man, it's been a minute since I've done this. I want to probably use something like an action map where you can map custom actions to a key binding, and then like it would be like in your game menu setting, you would change what those key bindings map to and what those actions map to. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the info. That'll be good to know. Okay, so that's gonna be unknown. So then I want this to become like apostrophe equals. Yeah, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Semicolon key equal. This becomes like equal equals A equals. Oh gosh. What am I missing? A comma? All right, so I'm gonna do a little trick here. Cool. Okay. So this is good. The reason I'm mapping the Raylib events to my events is if Raylib, for whatever reason, ever decides to change the value of these enums, then my enum will change with it. Otherwise, I would just straight up use my own like enum and enum values. But since I'm integrating with Raylib, I want to stick to whatever Raylib uses for their values. I don't know if I need these comments though, but I guess that's fine. Okay, so this is, do we think this is more than 256? Let's see, 36, 40, 145 is like what? 112, something like that. So UN 8T should be good enough. Okay. So I think getting key press and pressed and released up and running first is a good step to make sure event handling is doing what we need it to. Oh, I got something wrong. Oh, okay. Raylib is using larger values than 255. There. Good enough. Oh, I think my special guest might be ready to join the call with me as soon as they figure out internet. Let's schedule for tomorrow. Nope. Never mind. They bailed on me. Never mind. So I have I have other parts of this project that I want to get up and running to make my game. To be a little like to be able to build it quickly. And a previous coworker of mine, someone who worked for me, was interested in contributing, so I was going to have them work on it, and I was going to talk with them today about it on stream. But we will have to save that for another day. All right, so I think that compiled, so we need to get back into the window here. Oh, are you a Unreal 5 developer? Unreal 5 is so cool. So powerful. All right. A 1x planet. So inverted. Interesting. I don't know if I know what that means. Oh, I just realized another issue. All right. All right. This isn't going to work. This is not going to work. I'm going to undo everything. Maybe not everything. I'm going to do this. I want to get rid of Raylib. Oh my gosh. Welcome back, C++ noob. I mean, to be fair, we're all C++ noobs in some aspect, right? There's still so much I don't know, or so much I haven't used. Oh, interesting. A hollow earth. That would be cool. Open world is in like survival crafting. Hey, Ignacio, I'm just slowly building a game engine for a game I'm trying to make. I say game engine, but it's not going to be anything crazy. I'm just trying to get some basic rendering and general event handling, that kind of stuff. I'm currently getting event handling as soon as I figure out how to do multi-line selection with stupid VS Code. Okay, so I want to do... so this? No, that's too much. I really just want to do this, I think. Yes. Okay. So now here's a question. Is there a command in or VS Code to make everything lowercase. Transform to lowercase. Boom. All right. Stay with me. I've got a plan. So now I do uppercase. Transform uppercase. Boom. Except I don't want underscores. But there's not a lot of them, so I think I'll just manually edit those. I mean, I'm not going to complain about this. And boy, have I failed over and over to get to where I'm at. Oh, did I just screw something up? I sure did. All right, so I am going to move this back into core because I do need a way to pass these events around. Oh, man. I might be overthinking this. Do I need to handle events outside of graphics? That's really the question. I feel like the answer might be yes. Especially for like implementing an action map system. That has nothing to do with graphics. So, yeah, I think the answer is yes. So now I gotta think. For event handling, does the action map live on the window? Hmm. Yes, this is VS Code. You have your own. You have your own pet sleeping next to you. It's nice and cozy, isn't it? Let's see. Big slot. Let's see. We'll do events on update auto on events. Events. I actually hadn't started using VS Code for C++. I mainly have used Visual Studio most of my career, and then on Linux, I was just always using like what did I use on Linux? Sublime Text, because I used to use Sublime Text a lot. I would use Visual Studio and Sublime Text in conjunction because Sublime Text was like really quick at opening a file and had syntax highlighting and really nice multi-line editing compared to Visual Studio. But at one point, I out of necessity because I didn't have access to other tools, but I was approved to use VS Code, and so I ended up using VS Code, and then through VS Code I discovered dev containers and extensions. And so, like, the whole dev container ecosystem is honestly like the core reason I use VS Code. I'm sure other editors have ways to set up dev containers as well, but Vim. I can't use Vim. I've tried so hard. When I'm like trying to type and I forget to press A for append or I for insert, I get so frustrated because I'm like, I'm just trying to type, okay? I don't need to press other buttons in order for me to freaking type. So I know it's a get good situation. I just haven't had the patience to try and learn since. Did that compile? That compiled. Um, all right, so this will handle events, but this is just going to do events like crazy. It's not going to. We almost need to. When a child receives an event, we need to know if it's handled or not, and then it needs to get propagated. Because if it's not handled, it's forwarded to the next parent. Yeah, this isn't. I don't think this is the right solution. I almost need to like. I almost need to do like a depth first search. You know what? I'm curious how we can look this up actually. I'm curious how Qt does this. I'm pretty sure it's like a depth first. I got to remember where they do it though. Does this not show? Oh, there it is. Can you guys see that? Okay. I didn't learn. I only learned. I had like 3 classes in C++, like like CS 101, 102, 103 kind of thing. And then my senior year, I had one of those OpenGL classes where it's like write a 3D model parser and get it rendering. Like I didn't know anything about shading. I'm still not great at it. Like I have a better understanding of it today, but I definitely didn't know anything about like shading languages or anything like that. Okay, so these are the events. So somewhere Qt. They're gonna call like send event or post event. Yeah, but how do they determine? I don't need this to be that complicated. I just want to be able to pass an event. User enters the event. I will have to, I think in the window, honestly. Probably on update pre. Process events. Let's see. Translate events to Awen. Arwen. Determine node to receive event. So I think, like, if I'm a button and I click on it, this is going to be like if contains event, then node events event. If node contains event. So if I do that, then I don't think I need to propagate events at all. Well, you're learning all kinds of C++, aren't you? I graduated as a computer engineer, so I only did like a third. It was like a third math and physics, a third C++, and a third electronic circuits, circuit design. Uh, yeah, circuit design. Like we did a little bit of like CPU design, that kind of thing. Yeah, like embedded C stuff. We did what do we do? I had a lab that we worked on in Arduino, and we had to like connect a like this little, I don't, it wasn't LED. It was probably like LCD, like a little LCD display, and so we had to actually like program the bits to a register in order to get the display to do what it needed to do, and then basically write functions that would translate a letter to the bits a register needed to get it to print that letter on a display. So like low level stuff like that. A little bit of assembly, not a lot. I think the only assembly I've ever done was in school, and a little bit of debugging assembly on the job for reverse engineering. Um, events. So if I process translate events, I can use this window to figure out. Trying to think, because I could do engine send event. So this would be like node event. Might be making it, I still might be making this too complicated because I don't really know if I need events for my core components yet. Because if I'm making a game, yeah, but I really want to make. So if I'm implementing like a event handler, I want to be able to be like on event. Okay, I think I know what I want to do. I originally thought I wanted the engine to have the events, but maybe I don't for now. Ugh. Programming's hard. Program in a studio sounds kind of nice. I've worked at like I've had an office before. I've also worked in like a what do you call it? An open office area. I've done cubicles, and obviously I do work from home as well. So far I think work from home is the best. I've also done one that I've liked, which is just like a small room of like 4 developers with a whiteboard. That's actually really nice too. There's an overdrive. Now I'm saving. I think we're due. Think we're due. Oh yeah, always helps to have fresh pair of eyes. Even like, so one of the things I would do when, because I've been running teams now at this point for at least 8 years, maybe closer to 10. So even when I'm like running a team and I'm like the lead engineer, I still make sure I have at least 2 other engineers doing code review for anything I'm inputting, because one, it helps getting your team up to snuff on how to do code reviews and what I'm looking for in a code review. And two, I'm not perfect. I make all kinds of mistakes. And so it is nice to have like other opinions and other points of views on implementation to be like, hey, did you consider this? Or what about this? I'm like, oh, you know what? That's actually really smart. Why didn't I think of that? Plus, it helps build team. It helps build like working as a team. What's the difference between pushback and in place back? So to understand pushback versus placeback, you have to understand what in place means, especially when like working with vector. So with in place, it's almost like you're doing an in place new. So have you seen that before? Have you done like an in place new? What's a good way to show that? This isn't something I do professionally. I definitely don't write code like this myself, but it doesn't hurt to at least know that this exists. But you can imagine, I'm going to try and make this simple, and forgive me if I get the syntax wrong, because again, I don't really write this day to day. But let's say you have a block of memory, right? A 4 byte block of memory, and you want to, like, it's already allocated. The memory is already allocated, but you want to like initialize it with something, right? So you can do an in place new on that block of memory to essentially like call the constructor on the object in that memory, right? It's a way to initialize your object in that memory. So it essentially saves you like a step. So instead of having to, like, say you were doing a regular new, something like that, right? God, this feels so wrong to me. I I I don't know if I've ever, other than if I'm using like a C library or like a very old C++ API, I don't think I have ever personally had to use the new keyword in my code. And so this just feels wrong. So if you're like, if this was an actual class, right? Right? This has to allocate the memory for your class, and then it has to construct your class. That's two separate operations. Now, there might be compiler optimizations that happen under the hood that will alleviate some of this. But sometimes in code, especially library style of code, right? Library code that's like optimized for general purpose use, like a standard vector. Sometimes you have a block of memory already allocated, but it hasn't been constructed. So I might have a standard vector of my class, and under the hood, I don't know why my format is, under the hood, I don't off the top of my head, I don't know what the default implementation of the standard vector will do here. I don't know if it will like pre-allocate a couple blocks of memory or not. It might not. But if it did, you could have some allocated blocks of memory here, but your constructor has never been called, right? So when you do a pushback, what's actually happening? You're pushing back your class. And you could, maybe you've already instantiated your class, right? Maybe you have class A and you do a pushback. Well, for starters, you got to copy your class, okay? So there's a copy operation there. Because, so even if like pushback here, I don't know if we can look at it. Yeah. So this is by value, and there's a reason for that. I wonder if there's another example. There probably is, but it's probably not. It's going to be convoluted. Pushback, even if you like pass it by const reference where there is no copy, you still have to copy your class into the block of memory that was allocated by the vector. So if you want to save a couple of steps there, you can do something called in-place, right? So you can in-place back. In-place back basically says, hey, save the copy. So this actually compiles, right? I can just call in-place back naked because I can in-place new. I can effectively call, like, instantiate my class directly in the memory without that copy and call the constructor on it. I can in-place it. So if you're like, if you need something to Google, you want to look up in-place and what in-place means in general. But under the hood, this is essentially like an in-place new. And if I had a constructor that took a couple of parameters, so let's say like integer A, integer B, right? So this takes integer A, integer B. I can, with this in place, I don't have to pass in my class here because it's in placing it into the memory. So I just need to pass in the parameters, right? So like this would compile. So generally speaking, and I think like Clang Tidy, for instance, which is what I use as a static analyzer, it will call this out. You almost never use pushback anymore. There's no benefit to just doing a pushback. You always do in place back because under the hood, you can still do my class A and then do an in place back on it. And that is effectively a pushback. But you get a benefit of if that is not what you're doing, maybe you're using like a movable object, because a lot of code uses vectors to store like pointers or other data structures that have pointers, right? And it's more performant to be able to just in place move that data into the container versus performing some kind of like copy, right? So that's where in place back comes from. And at this point in C++, if you're writing C++ and you're using like a vector, you're just never using pushback anymore. Or at least I'm not. I don't know if AI is going to replace coding, but it is a tool, right? And it's a tool to make you more productive. So if you know your shit, then that tool can empower you to get your work done quicker and more efficiently. I mean, we have seen what it's doing for me, right? So I needed to map my events to the Raylib events themselves, and rather than hunting and pecking or copying and pasting, it automatically let me just hit tab and it auto completed, right? So things like that, AI is so beneficial for debugging really complicated problems that require you to like dig into code and like parse and figure out what's wrong. AI can just use the debug tool for you, scan the code, and basically tell you exactly what's going on. So it's a multiplying effect. Now, if you are vibe coding, that's a different story. First of all, you do you, right? I have attempted to use LLMs to like generate large swaths of swaths. What's the word I'm trying to say? That's gonna drive me crazy. Swatches? Oh, nope. That must not be it. Well, anyway, large amounts of code. So you're if you use AI to generate like large amounts of code with no guiding input with your knowledge, then you are you will be running into trouble. But if you know what you're doing, right? If you be like, hey, I want to build this maybe not this entire application, but I want to build this page, this web page, or this application page on a mobile device, or a feature in my game. Please adhere to this architecture. Use these design patterns. You know, I want to keep data separate from what's being displayed. If you use sound design principles that you were going to use anyway because you know what you're doing, then yeah, AI is going to save you a ton of time. But if you're just saying, hey, I want this feature and I want it to do this, it will do it, but your code will probably not be very maintainable and it will probably be full of bugs, right? Now, will it get better? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it'll eventually get to a point where I can say, hey, generate World of Warcraft. And then it just sits there and runs on a supercomputer for a week, and then it outputs World of Warcraft. I mean, that would be insane. I have no idea, right? But if you know what you're doing, it's a force multiplier. It's just like using a calculator to do math, in my opinion. I gotta sneeze. Oh, okay. Hmm. I'm using it like in my at my job, right? It has legitimately saved me significant, and I mean days, if not weeks of time, just like either figuring out a bug or basically implementing exactly what I would have implemented, right? If I'm using AI to generate code, it's going to generate code I would have written because I told it to or I gave it examples, right? Like even in this project, I have something called Copilot instructions because I am using GitHub Copilot. And in these instructions, I tell it exactly what I want from it when it generates code. It needs to follow certain naming conventions. It needs to make sure it's documenting. It needs to make sure we use braces and things like that. I'm even telling it to use certain functions over other functions when it's generating code. Like I know what I'm like. I know exactly what code I want when I use it to generate, right? And if there is something I don't like, I update the documentation to fix that. I mean, we're looking here, we're starting to see bigger frameworks, Flutter, Qt. They're coming out with markdown files now in their repos that you can add to your code base to have AI use it to write better code, right? I don't know. I can't dictate the future. I can't see the future, but it's a tool. And we're going to get better at using the tool. The tool is going to get better. We're going to be able to work quicker, for better or worse. And we are seeing everyone evolve with it, right? So it's one of those things, like, even if you don't like it, be aware of it, understand how to use it correctly, that kind of thing. But even with it, I mean, I'm still writing my own code. It's still the code I would have written, right? It's not like I'm saying, hey, generate 20 files and make this work. And once I have enough of this framework in place where I have my style and my standards and my design patterns and the testing, oh my God, the testing. When I have all of that in place, it can just replicate it. It can use what I've written and do the same thing for other spots, other parts of the code base. It knows how I will run or write it. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, and this is where it's tough, right? If you don't know a programming language and you're using AI to code, then you're just not going to learn, right? You're just literally writing English, or I hope you're writing English, or whatever language you speak is what you're writing, right? You're not actually learning the concepts. You're not understanding what a race condition is or how to debug a race condition, right? Okay, events. All right, so that's looking good. Does that compile? That probably does not compile because I did not import it. I mean, yeah, I do that. I don't. So I made a mobile app, right? Called Flutter. I might be able to show you guys, or not. The mobile app isn't called Flutter. Hang on. What's the best way to do this? Actually, can I do it in here? So I'm a Magic the Gathering nerd, and I got tired of my friends always picking on me when we get together to play Magic the Gathering, and so I wanted to keep track of like how often they attack me versus everyone else. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make an app, a mobile app. So I have a mobile app that's in active development, and I'm using Flutter for cross-platform development, right? Right? I can do all kinds of stuff with this. I have like it keeps track of your history. I got a little die roller. I can, I'm still building this. You can add a monarch token. I didn't know Flutter when I started developing this, right? So you better believe I used AI to ask questions and be like, "Hey, how do I use a widget to draw a rectangle with these rounded corners, right?" But I knew I wanted rounded corners. How do I use event handling to do this drawer sliding effect so I can choose a different color, right? So I'm definitely asking questions. Now, what did I do to make all this possible? Is like I still understand design patterns. I still know how I want to architect my solution. I know that I want to keep data separate from the widgets so that I can do networking. So then what did I do? I have networking. And now the networking doesn't work in a browser. But on a phone, you can come to host, and if you're on a local Wi-Fi, you can host a room, and then anyone else with the app can go to join and join that room, right? So like I didn't just say, "Hey, make an app," and then it spit out a bunch of files. I said, "Hey, I need a counter, and this is how I want to implement it. Now I want to connect this counter to a data model that is separate from the widget, right? I want to make sure I have some tests to cover for this. I want to make sure that I can style the app, right? I want to make sure I have the ability to pass in a different theme setting so that a user can customize." So I'm still applying software design principles while using this tool, but it saves me a lot of the typing. Now, the reason I'm not just straight up using LLMs to just generate all of my code right here, like I'm obviously using it for a lot of the autocomplete because it saves me some typing. And if you've been in a couple of my other streams, you've seen me use it to generate some of the testing. Now, I'm still verifying the test makes sense and I'm still tweaking the tests, but it saves me typing. But the big reason I'm not just saying, "Hey, just do all of this," is I do want to provide a stream someone can pop in and see some C++ actually getting written, right? Plus, it helps keep my own mind sharp if I'm actually writing it versus just using an LLM to generate everything. Because I feel like I start to lose I lose practice, even though I'm doing it during the day. Did this actually compile? It didn't. What did I get wrong? Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Good luck on your exam. I do not miss taking exams, so good luck. I do not miss it. I was just looking at the Conway. That's a like thing where you have you sign like what, like different logic, and it just like you just kind of see it ebb and flow and see like life compete with each other kind of game. I've never done that before. It really does not like what I'm trying to do here. First reference, let's see, note, that's not, where's the error? Function does not take one argument. What do you mean it doesn't take one argument? I decide what argument it takes. What? Oh. Yep. We're good. It would be kind of a cool test of optimization just to have a simple game with a couple of rules and then just see how many you can get displayed on a screen at once. Ooh, I wonder if you could do it all on a shader. I bet you could. That might be a good stream because I don't know a lot about shader. Like I haven't written a lot of shaders in my career. And the ones I have written have been super simple, so I've never really had to do logic or anything. I wonder if a Conway's Game of Life could be written in a shader. Okay, so that's compiling. We now have event handling on our node. So I need logic for determining what node receives the event. Oh, but my node doesn't have a size. So what do I do about that? Do I just give a node a size and call it a day? That might be the easiest solution. Do I care? Do I care? Is it? Because in here, we want to handle translating the nodes to events. So I'm going to need a function. I might put that function in here. Yeah, maybe that's what I do. This is going to be a big function, I suspect. So this will be raylib event to raylib, what a weird name. Raylib event to event, raylib to I don't know. I think this is a lie because this isn't how. Yeah, this is a lie. This isn't how this is going to work. This actually needs to be like a vector. It's going to be a vector of events. So I need this. Oh man, this is going to be like process events. Because I basically need to collect all of raylib events. And raylib events are kind of a pain in the butt. Missing return type after the arrow. Does that not look like a return type? Oh, I see what's wrong. There we go. Jeez. All right. So this basically, we're going to have to make a bunch of checks and loop through a bunch of keys, but we're going to use a trick with a reflection library for enums to make this a little easier. And that reflection library is called magic enum. Is it an underscore? Or it's, I forget if it's an underscore or a dash. It might be a dash. LM MAABCDFG magic enum. It's a dash. Okay, so we're gonna use magic enum. And then I need to configure my project to build it. Perfect. Okay. So now I should be able to include magic enum. That doesn't look right. There we go. There we go. So then magic enum will use C++ 17 const expression magic to acquire the reflection of these enumerations, which will allow me to be like for auto event magic enum values event keys. So then I can loop over every key, cast it to an int because all of my events are assigned via the raylib values. Because all of these enumerations have a raylib integer assigned to them. So then I can cast them to an int to pass it into the raylib function to determine if a key is pressed or released, which will determine what event keyboard was created. And that should give me key events. Pretty straightforward. All of this looks good. So then in my window function here on update pre, I should be able to do, oh, nope. Wow, it got that wrong. Got it wrong in one. I should be able to do auto events equal process, oops. Process events. Probably need to pull it in. Import. And then I can just do for const auto events this root node events. We'll see if this actually works. Oh, we'll be able to do 2 tests here actually. This will be interesting. Because I can update the text to show which key was pressed. So basically, ooh, is this gonna be a first try situation? I'm feeling it in my bones. We're getting a first try here. Ooh, I don't know if I actually have set text implemented. Let's make sure. I do not. That's awkward. All right, now it's implemented. See that right there? Whew. That saved me like at least 10 seconds. I'm a decent typer. Like if I really try, I think I can get about 120 words per minute. If I'm just lazily typing, it's probably around like 80 or 90 words a minute. This definitely saved me like 30 seconds. 15 seconds. But over the course of years, how many seconds do you save? So we set the text, we get the text, all that looks good, and then we're rendering the text, that looks good. So we come back here. So now I should be able to I don't have anything that maps the keys to text, but that's okay. Oh, you know what we can use? We use magic enum. I also need to make sure I export the events into here. Am I not exporting color? Whoops. Okay, so the events are exported. So I'll have access to the events. So this root node then, what I should be able to do, maybe down here, root node on events. I can determine if holds alternative. What? Oh. That's not how I was going to use variants. Is that something I can use? I've not heard of that before. Standard holds. C++ 17. You have a variant. If it holds a string, do... Okay. All right, so if we have a keyboard event, get it, and if it's a pressed event, what I can do is say text, set text, standard format. Can I do a format? Include format. Key press magic enum name. Except I can do this like, yeah, if. Syntax error. Okay. All right. What do we think? First try? Oh, that's awkward. I forgot it was positioned weird. Let's get rid of... let's just comment this out, I guess. See where it's positioned. Let's position it a little better. Ooh. It's saying that's a key one, but I'm pressing shift. So it should be exclamation, but that's fine. I think keyboard events are working. All right. Typing at 200 words a minute. My application is still running at about 10,000 frames a second in debug, so we're looking pretty good. ZXC VBNM. Freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. And I didn't have to do any character conversion myself. Awesome. Key pressed, key released using magic enum. I love magic enum. It's probably one of my favorite open source libraries. All right. I think that's just about all I had planned for today's stream, especially since my coworker didn't want to or wasn't able to hop on today. So now I want to make sure that all of this will compile for Linux and WebAssembly. Ooh, we should make sure WebAssembly works too. So I'm going to hop into my dev container now. Wish you guys could hear Trill right now. He is snoring. All right, that builds. That builds. Let's see if the web browser will run the app. It will, but it's not showing. Do I need to resize this? Everyone see that? Oh, dang it. It's not receiving my key presses. But I don't know if this is an issue with the WebAssembly or the fact that I'm in a dev container and it's just not handling my events correctly. Let's try Linux, or let's try the Linux build, because I need to make sure Clang Tidy passes anyway. Okay, that built. Make sure everything's formatted. Everything's formatted, and now the one that causes all the problems, Clang Tidy. The bane of my existence. Oh my god. No issues. Heck yeah. All right. Linux is good. I guess I can make sure it runs. The W looks like a rotated E. Actually, wait, is it? Is it any different? Huh. But events are working for Linux, so that's good. I'll have to figure out what's going on with the WebAssembly. All right, folks. I think that is where I'm going to end it for this evening. I got the hard part figured out, I think, for events, which was honestly the this piece here. I still need to implement what is it? I definitely need to implement window, mouse, and more importantly, joystick, because I will want to handle my my controller here for the game. And then figure out, I also need to figure out like that whole action mapping thing I was telling everyone about, because I will want to be able to assign different types of data. Hey Joe, how's it going? Appreciate it. You hopped in at just as I was about to hop off, I think. I got done what I wanted to get done. We have event handling, at least for keyboard. So the next step is to get the other events implemented and then get it prepped for action inputs so that I can, you know, do like player jump instead of if K, right? Make it easy to script. And speaking of scripting, that's like the next step I wanted to, or I wanted to have my my coworker who wanted to contribute. I wanted him to start looking into a scripting language for this project. But yeah, everything's compiled, so we're going to go ahead and push this up. And I think with that, we will call it implement event handling for nodes. And there'll definitely need to be some refinement down the road, but that's okay. We'll get to that when we need to. I'm not too stressed about it. But yeah. All right, folks. I really appreciate everyone coming by. I will probably be on tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm, you know, I got to take a mental break from all the coding I do every day. So tomorrow I'll probably be playing a game. Most likely continuing the Baldur's Gate game unless I'm in the mood for some kind of competitive game or just standalone game. Haven't decided. We'll see what I'm in the mood for. Wednesday, 5:30 Eastern, I will be back. I will be continuing this project and maybe have some more, maybe have another contributor actively working on this to help improve it. And then I also want to figure out how I want to connect my game, which I'm going to develop in a separate repo, to this project. Probably going to do some kind of package manager registry shenanigans with VC package. We'll see. But all that to come. Events, the initial events are in, so that's good. And I will catch everyone next time. See ya.